Hello, welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up. This one is going to be fun because it's sort of an extension of what we did last week. So a lot of the stuff in this is sort of familiar, especially if you were tuned in last week or caught the replay and did the exercise from last week. It's the same sort of area of finger flexibility exercise working through the throat tone range, but I actually added on a little bit of extra notes. So in like the next generation clarinet method, the finger flexibility goes for like 2 beats worth of 16th notes, so 8 beats up or 8 notes up and then back down. Today I'm adding on an extra beat, so it'll be 12 notes up and down, because I think it works so well for getting through all of the tricky bits of the clarinet. This little 3 beats of 16th notes or 12 note range that I'm going to demonstrate in this exercise, I think covers just about all of the trickiest bits of the clarinet, in terms of fingers at least. It doesn't go into some of the altissimo stuff, which is tricky fingering, so you'll have to work on that on your own in a separate way, and maybe I'll do an exercise with some of the difficulty in the finger coordination of the altissimo. But this one pretty much covers all of the tricky bits of the Chalumeau and Clarion register, so I think it's going to be great. And we're also not just focusing on our fingerings and getting through these tricky fingering sections, but we're also going to be talking about actually articulating and doing this as a little bit of an articulation warm-up. The nice thing with articulation warm-ups is that usually you want to start with really great confidence and control with your actual finger motion first, and then add in the articulation. But by the time you go through all of the different articulations and get really comfortable with those that I'm going to go over today, then your fingers are going to be so rock solid with this exercise. So this is pretty much like an all-in-one, almost as best as you can get for one exercise that can sort of cover everything you need, except of course long tones. This one doesn't really do long tones in it. You can of course, as always, still focus on sound quality and get really good sound quality, but I highly encourage, as always, starting with some long tones to get the sound going. So what I'm doing for this actual exercise is just a chromatic scale, sort of up and down like the chromatic scale in chunks that's in the next generation clarinet method. But instead of just going 2 beats, I'm going to go 3 beats. So I'm going to start on this E, so the bottom line of the staff E, play 3 beats of chromatic scale, so 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 1, which will bring us up to exactly an octave higher E, and then do that back down. The reason why I love this register to work in is because it covers everything. Like last week, what we talked about was the difficulty with the throat tone fingerings and being able to get this finger really well coordinated, getting all of those going smooth. It also deals with this like side F sharp. If you watch closely and notice my fingers, I actually do the side F sharp going down, but then the front F sharp, or sorry, the side F sharp going up, and then the front F sharp going down, just to practice both of those possibilities for fingerings. And then it also gets you through all the difficult pinkies. So this pinky action in the chromatic scale here is some of the trickier stuff that you have to do on the clarinet. And I find that going from D sharp to E is always the most challenging. So this also gets that controlled. So you have to get both of those pinkies coordinated and then come straight back down. So that's why this range in particular is so good for working on your fingers and making sure that your fingers are really well coordinated. So that's the notes that we're going to be playing. And then we're also going to be adding in articulations, because we already sort of did those notes last week. Not exactly that same full range, but more or less the same. But now we're going to add in articulation. So I'm going to just repeat up and down, and then I'm going to do slur 2, tongue 2, tongue 2, slur 2, what I call slurring to the beat, which is basically you tongue the E and then slur to the beat. Hold on, my stream's still hear me and see me, or at least it'll work in the replay, hopefully. But slur to the beat, which is like a tongue to slur to variation, but moves it over a little bit. And then tonguing to the beat, which is the opposite of that. So it's tongue, slur, tongue, slur. Again, a variation of tongue to, slur to, but just offsetting it to make it a little bit more challenging. And then slur 3, tongue 1, and then tongue 1, slur 3. And then slur 3, which is actually really challenging because that doesn't line up with each beat and sort of creates a little hemiola effect. So don't worry about like memorizing all of that. I'll go through it as I'm demonstrating it and remind you what it is. So I'm going to start with slur 2, tongue 2. Now, tongue 2, slur 2, so the opposite of that. And then slurring to the beat. So listen to how this one sort of goes. One tongue, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur. So we're always slurring forward to that next downbeat. And as you're doing these, I really encourage you to think about your fingers, make sure that those are going really well and being really well coordinated. And also think about the articulation. The great thing about this kind of articulation pattern exercise is it makes you move your tongue at different times. So you have to be really in control of your tongue and really on top of when it's supposed to be tonguing a note versus slurring a note. And it also gives you those slurs to work on the continuous air support. So we don't want it to be like between the slurs and the tongues. We just want that perfectly continuous steady airstream as is required for good articulation. So you shouldn't have any variation from strong, steady, slurred airstream to strong, steady, articulated airstream, just with the tongue stopping the vibrations of the reed. So continuing on, now we'll do tonguing to the beat. So we're slurring the middle notes and then tonguing, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue, slur, tongue, tongue. So we're always tonguing leading into the beat. Now slur 3, tongue 1. And that one I wanted to do one extra time because I noticed on that second time this pinky was starting to flatten out and not move as well as I wanted. So I just did another one to really get exactly what I wanted. And now tongue 1, slur 3. And finally, slur 3. This one will be a little fun. Try to see if you can count along 16th notes with me so you can feel that hemiola. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. It's a fun one, but a little tricky. And that's all of the articulation patterns. I'm sure you could come up with some other ones. And if you have any favorite articulation patterns that I didn't include in this, definitely leave a comment with those because I would love to see all of the different variations. I think these were just about all of them that I could come up with that pretty much fit within the beat and organize in to sort of beat patterns. You can get really crazy though. Maybe do like tongue 5, slur 3 or something like that, where it starts to get sort of asymmetrical, where it's not every beat is the same repeated pattern. That can be really, really challenging to keep track of everything. So if you have any really good ones like that or really fun ones, leave them in the comments below so that we can all give them a try and see how they go. And I hope that you enjoyed this exercise. And if you really take the time to go through all of these, and again, I was repeating on average 2 or 3 times through the pattern up and down, but you can repeat even more, like 7 to 10 times. And just imagine how good your clarinet playing would be if you did every single articulation like 7 or so times, and really every single repeat through it, you were thinking about good sound quality, good minimal in control finger motion with perfectly steady rhythm, and great, precise, well-supported articulation. You would be an expert at this particular exercise. And this particular exercise would translate to so much because it gets you through all of the tricky parts of the clarinet, at least for the Chalumeau and Clarion registers. So thank you so much for being here for this week's live weekly warm-up. I hope there weren't too many technical difficulties. Hopefully they'll be all resolved on the replay if they're not. And I wanted to also mention that all of these articulation patterns are in the Next Generation Clarinet Method book. Go to like the 3-step warm-up section, go all the way to the end of that with the final articulation exercise. It doesn't have it on this particular note groupings, but it has it over the course of a bigger scale, but it has all of the versions and all of these different articulation patterns so that you don't have to worry about memorizing them from this video if you have the Next Generation Clarinet Method. And if you don't, you should go to quickstartclarinet.com/nextgenbook and get a copy of that because it's awesome and lots of people are really liking it and enjoying it. And I think it'll help with your clarinet journey. So thanks so much for being here for the live weekly warm-up. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday at 12:30 Mountain Time for the next live weekly warm-up.